It has been about a week since the reveal of the Edge of Fate, and while I know I had followed along as the live had gone on and expressed some of my less than positive opinions regarding the Edge of Fate, I'd figured I'd go through the stream, point out some of the points that I just found, as the title may suggest, uninspired or otherwise boring for a longtime Destiny veteran, as the flame for me of Destiny, it's still on, but it's definitely not as strong. And there is many a Destiny creators right now that would do the usual, this update looks insane, but I'm not even certain all of them actually think that, as I'm a Destiny creator, and honestly, the Edge of Fate looked just like the title would suggest, uninspired. Now, to go through it from the top to the bottom of the length of, or should I say the topics they discussed in the stream, they start with the story and they pose the question of, is fate real, given that supposedly the Nine have control of fate? Well, since the first raid of Destiny, Guardians have made their own fate. It was literally a buff we used on screen. Now, to that extent, given that Guardians have been making their own fate for so long, I can't help but feel like the idea of posing the question, is fate real, already is going to be solved with a, well, not for Guardians, because we make our own. So the story is already looking like it's probably going to, end that way. But then we get into the rest of the Edge of Fate, where personally, as a more casual person, or I should say casual player of Warframe 1999, Edge of Fate just sounds like it's going to be a copy of that kind of premise. Because what I got from Warframe 99 is being the right person pulled from time to be at a specific time just when they need it. Which that was literally how they presented the Edge of Fate. Everyone has been pulled from time for a specific reason at this exact time. It just is, it's sounding too similar personally. As a dedicated Destiny player and as a casual Warframe 1999 player, it seems like the themes are really clashing there. Then we have the idea of Kepler. Kepler is at the very edge of the system, but it's not out of the system. Since Echoes, they've been kind of teasing the idea of going beyond the system, and not to mention the fact that I thought the Reef was the edge of the system. If the Kepler is actually at the edge of the system, then what makes the Reef the edge of system special? I feel like it's just clashing now too. And then we get into the new NPC of Lodi. Personally, I just think he looks like another version of Gordon Freeman, but Destiny flavored. Not to mention the devs saying his character personality is a notice me senpai type of character. It sounds like he's going to be competing with Nimbus for the King of Cringe in Destiny. But then we also get into Matterspark, the new kind of nifty thing about Kepler with dark matter and mixing all those things. Matterspark and all the puzzle changing things, it sounds cool. Don't get me wrong, it's going to be mixing a new element, air quotes. I'd say elements, air quotes, because it's not really. But it's going to be a new thing mixing with all of our current elements to create new abilities. Well, sadly, it's going to be like naturally spawning grapple points and the deep sight zones and the Savathun's throne world. It's going to be a one location gimmick that it might exist elsewhere, but in terms of being nearly as powerful, definitely won't be. So how unique is it going to be when it only sticks to one planet and it's not exactly used elsewhere? Plus, the puzzles. They sound like it's a cool premise in making puzzles to gain access and traverse areas. But are they going to shift? Are they going to change? Because right now, looking at it, they don't. And after you figure out the puzzle the first time, all the wonder and the wow is gone. Because then you'll know exactly how to get through an area. And then it just won't be there. And speaking of dark matter, as before, it's a new element, but it's not a new subclass. No new subclass, it's just more mixings of our old elements. And as much as we want to say Prismatic was a new subclass, it was basically just combining of all the other ones together. So I can't really even call it a new subclass in the end, because Transcendence and the Mix Grenades was the only bits that were exactly new. Same thing, dark matter may give you a new ability, but in the end it's not a subclass. And then there's the enemies of the Edge of Fate. It's Fallen with a new type of enemy. One, and it's basically just a Vandal with a jetpack. And then there's Vex, another new type of enemy, with a little swarm of bees. Yeah, just Fallen and Vex again? In the trailer, we see a just good old standard Archon, Fallen. It doesn't feel unique at all. You can say that the Vandals or the Pike Wielders with Strand Spears are going to be unique, but it's just going to be the same Pike Wielders just as poke you, except this time they might unravel you or suspend you once in a while. It's not going to be any much different than the Weavers and the other Scions that went Darkness and got Strand and Ice powers. But then, that's all I can say regarding that, but then when we get into the Rite of the Nine. And while I say it's a good event, it's basically just Pantheon, but then dungeon flavored. The event weapons, as I've seen, may be a little bit mid, but why not make solo mode dungeons permanent? I have been seeing so many people going through and soloing dungeons fairly easily because there is that solo mode, that solo guided mode. Personally, I can't get that many people to actually get in with dungeons, and I don't feel like borrowing random people that may or may not know what they're doing. So, would I just rather solo dungeons? Yes, but they're not made to be soloed per se. They're made to have 3 people in a fire team. So why not have a solo-friendly mode where the health pools are really tweaked for a single person? Why is that not permanent? If it's just another 3 or 6 week version that disappears for too long and people just have happy memories of it, but we really wish they could bring it back, that's just not going to go well in the end. And then there is the portal. Personally, this feels a lot like a classic Destiny issue, where it seems like it was for the new people, but not so much for the old veterans. Because they cite not knowing how or how many people, most people need, how do I say this? They cite that the reasons why they made it is for the people that just want to hop into activity and want to know immediately how many people are needed. The veterans already know that. It's only for the brand new people, because the veterans, otherwise, they know if they want solo, they can go to a few places, go into individual campaign missions. If they wanted matchmade, they can go to any ritual activity. And if they wanted something harder, they can go to the master mode challenges, raids, and all that. So the portal, it just seems like it's going to be a shortcut for the new people, but without really doing much for the veterans otherwise. Now, I will admit though, from what they suggested, the power grind being able to be done through any method is good. Being able to grind out all your gear through Crucible, if you're a Crucible only player and get your power level up, is a very good thing. But then why do we have the fire team leader power if the grind is going to be easier than ever? With the final shape, we made it so that technically no one's power is important as long as your fire team leader is the highest. So why make it so easy to grind power through the portal all of a sudden, making the fire team leader irrelevant in the end? That's that point. But then we get to the gear. Armor 3.0 in the way. The step bonuses sound good, but they 100% need to be retroactive, because I do not want to spend an entire next season grinding out entirely new gear sets just because the old ones don't have set bonuses. That will really hamper the enjoyment if I even get into it. Then we have the gear tiers. It's a good concept, but allegedly from some of the descriptions, it will restrict our power capacity in a really bad way. Right here on the Bungie site, we see a screenshot of the weapons suggesting you will need to gear up to higher tiers to be able to access more difficult content. In terms of Destiny, that would suggest you need getting higher light to access higher difficulty content. Because trust me, just getting double enhanced perks or another row of perk columns isn't gonna be the thing that allows you to get into higher difficulty stuff. In the end, it will always be your power level. So if you're going to need tier 5 gear in order to access high level light activities, it's gonna be a pain, considering we will still need to grind up the rest of the tiers and eventually access the good stuff all the way through. Honestly, that just doesn't sound like it's enticing. It just sounds like it's gonna be a extended gear grind. Then there is also the thing they mentioned about unique kill effects for max tier weapons. Hate to break it to you, Bungie, but you've had kill effects since the 30th anniversary with the Grunt birthday party throwback. You always had the opportunity to add new ones, and just saying, oh, if you have a max tier weapon, now you'll have cool effects to indicate that you have a max tier weapon. Before too long, if it's worth it, everyone's gonna have max tier weapons. And then no one's gonna really look that special. It's gonna be a gold star in a field of gold stars. But then there is the next bit, and that is the New Land Beyond. It's a shortcut reward, that right now I feel like is definitely a flavor of cutting content from the main activity. Looking back in the past, when we got Quicksilver Storm, we got the exotic, but we still had to get the catalyst way down the line once the actual DLC started. And then Tessellation came out, and that one really had everything released pretty early on. Catalyst and weapon and all. And then when it came to this one, same thing. If you pre-ordered the Edge of Fate, Year of Prophecy, whatever it is, you got the New Land Beyond, and supposedly it's Catalyst with it, according to Bungie's own advertising. Why not just actually leave this in the next DLC and give us something to do? Because spending the money early and getting a whole new exotic ahead of time, sure, it's good to keep Destiny players entertained for now, but once the DLC comes out, that's one less weapon they could go on an exotic quest for, and a really unique experience. Now we just buy it, instead of doing a really unique exotic quest, or otherwise a really good exotic mission. It's a shortcut, which I definitely think is hurting Bungie's levels of content, per se. Now, going on and just cutting on through a few things, they mentioned with the new season of Ash and Iron, they suggest returning to the Plaguelands. However, they didn't say Siva. So, just having another Fallen DLC but be void of Siva, another potentially bad move. Now, Heavy Metal, that is out right now. It's been out. People are loving it. You can get access to a new Sparrow with guns. It took Bungie over a decade to finally add a Sparrow with a gun. Over a decade of Destiny. And before you say we had pikes, we can't keep pikes. That is very location relevant. And they frankly suck in terms of mobility compared to Sparrows. So, it took over a decade to add a Sparrow with a gun. I would have much rather them just not at this point if it took them so long to do it. Almost same with New Land Beyond. It took them 12 years to add a gun they had modeled into the game and still had to remodel it instead of just copy and pasting the model. I would have just rather they not, personally. If it took them this long, it should have stayed dead. Then there's the next bit, the shooting range. Speaking of dead, we currently have a shooting range in the crafting location on Mars. Personally, it's a little bit limited. You can only tell so much. Granted, it's a shooting range, but not a great one. But we already had a better one in the Tribute Hall that Bungie sunset and never returned. We had interactive targets. You could have spawned anything, an ogre, a centurion, random weapons, even random relic weapons. You could have spawned random enemies and tested your weapons against them. And they never returned it. They put it back into a dungeon, but we can't use it. So, great. We have another firing range, but it honestly should not be commended that we have a firing range after, again, they took the last good one and they gave us a mediocre one, and that's the one that stayed. Then, holofoil. Talking about holofoil with events. Sure, that looks good. Putting oceans on a gun, that does look cool. But for limited time events that were barely worth the time, as I have missed the last 3 events and not felt any lesser for it, well, yeah, sure, great, but the events better frickin' change, because in the end, we're going to be playing the same old events of Solstice in the EAZ to get guns to look cool, just to realize we're playing the same mode we've been playing for the last 5 years. And then the last thing, Renegade. Sure, Star Wars. It does look cool, but at the end of the day, it's just a Destiny story that is using Star Wars trademarks. It feels like a bit of a Fortnite shortcut of just acquiring the rights to putting a character in the store and just saying, here's content, even though it's just skins. The lightsaber, like, sure, that could be cool, but we've had the energy sword, which is already another better form of lightsaber. Like I said, these are all just Destiny things with Star Wars trademark activities or characteristics on them. It's really just going to feel like Destiny again. It's not going to make Destiny into any sort of Star Wars story wasteland with the Force. We already have space magic. It's not really going to enrich it. But in the end, that 15 minutes or more, maybe less, abouts, that is basically what I just wanted to talk about. None of it looked inspired, really. Like Matter Scourge, sure, it's a cool thing, but then it's just another location gimmick like Deep Sight, or otherwise the grapple points that exist on Neomuna. They don't exactly exist anywhere else, so it's just going to be a one-planet thing that never comes around again and will eventually die off and people will forget. And with that idle timer putting me back into orbit, that is where I am going to wrap it up and just say, these are my opinions. I'm not exactly looking forward to the Edge of Fate. I wish I was, but I'm not. For all those people that are just going to comment and say, If you don't like it, then don't buy it. I'm probably not gonna. If I don't want to unfollow Destiny, but at the same time, they're not giving me a reason to follow per se. And with that, that is where I'm going to leave it. Of course, the comments are always welcome for conversation. Of course, conversation, not just angry ranting. And with that, I will see you in the next video.